You shall have dominion over all demons. No evil shall stand before you. With the ring in his hand, Solomon summoned the demon Orneus, who had been tormenting the boy. The air grew cold, and Orneus appeared, sneering at the king. But when Solomon held up the ring, the demon felt its power and was forced to kneel. "Why do you torment this child?" Solomon demanded. "Because I can," Orneus replied with malice. "I feed on his life force to strengthen myself." Solomon, undeterred, commanded Orneus to cease his torment and instead work on the construction of the temple. Bound by the ring's power, the demon had no choice but to obey. From that day forward, Solomon used the ring to summon other demons, compelling them to reveal their names, powers, and weaknesses. Each demon was different. Beelzebul, the prince of demons. Asmodeus, the demon of lust. Abazethebu, who had hardened Pharaoh's heart. But all were compelled to serve the king. As the demons toiled under Solomon's command, the temple rose, a magnificent structure that symbolized the divine covenant between God and his people. The people of Israel marveled at the king's power, and peace reigned in the land. Yet, as Solomon's power grew, so did his pride. He began to rely more on the ring and less on the wisdom that had made him great. Years passed, and one day, Solomon learned of a powerful demon known as Ashmedai, also known as Asmodeus, the king of demons, whose mischief and chaos were infamous. Determined to subdue Ashmedai and bring him under control, Solomon devised a cunning plan. He instructed his servants to find a chain engraved with the name of God and a flask of wine, and he set out to capture the elusive demon. Ashmedai was found near a mountain, living in seclusion. Solomon's servants poured the wine into a well, from which Ashmedai drank, knowing that the demon abstained from alcohol. But on that day, thirst overcame him, and he drank deeply. As the wine took effect, Ashmedai grew drowsy, his powers dulled by the drink. Seizing the moment, Solomon's men chained him and brought him back to Jerusalem. Solomon's initial plan was to force Ashmedai to help build the temple, using the demon's immense strength to move the heaviest stones. But Ashmedai, though bound, was cunning. He served Solomon while secretly plotting his escape. One day, he tricked Solomon into removing his ring, the source of his power over the demons. In an instant, Ashmedai seized the ring, cast Solomon out of his palace, and took the throne for himself. For years, Solomon wandered the land as a beggar, stripped of his kingdom and his power. No one recognized the once great king, who had been reduced to nothing by the demon's deception. The experience left Solomon humbled and reflective on the dangers of pride and the thin line between wisdom and folly. Eventually, fate led him back to Jerusalem, where he discovered Ashmedai flaunting his stolen power. With courage and a bit of luck, Solomon managed to retrieve his ring, regain his throne, and banish Ashmedai once and for all. But the once wise king was now a changed man. The power he had wielded to control the forces of darkness had also led him to his downfall. He understood that even the greatest wisdom could be undone by pride. As Solomon resumed his reign, he carried with him the lessons learned from his encounters with the demons. That power must be tempered with humility, and that no man, no matter how wise, is beyond the reach of temptation. The tale of Solomon became a timeless reminder that true wisdom lies not just in knowledge, but in the humility to recognize one's limitations. Solomon's final days were a far cry from what was expected of a king with so much glory and splendor. The man who had once been known for his wisdom, wealth, and devotion to God had become a shadow of his former self. His later years were marked by spiritual decline, political instability, and a growing sense of disillusionment. The book of Ecclesiastes, traditionally attributed to Solomon, reflects this sense of despair. In it, Solomon reflects on the futility of worldly pursuits, declaring that everything is meaningless in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 2. This sentiment is an obvious contrast to the optimism and faith that characterized his earlier writings in Proverbs and the Song of Solomon. It suggests that, in his later years, Solomon came to realize the emptiness of the very things he had once placed so high: wealth, power, pleasure, and wisdom. The Bible does not provide a detailed account of Solomon's death, but it is clear that he left behind a divided and troubled kingdom. His son Rehoboam's harsh policies and failure to heed wise counsel led to the rebellion of the northern tribes and the eventual split of Israel into two kingdoms. The once great kingdom that Solomon had inherited and expanded was now fractured, and the seeds of its eventual downfall had been sown. Solomon's life offers several important lessons. First, it serves as a reminder that wisdom needs to be balanced with a life of righteousness. Wisdom must be accompanied by humility, obedience to God, and a commitment to living according to His will. Solomon's future decline was not due to a lack of wisdom, but to a failure to continually apply that wisdom in his own life, particularly in his relationships and spiritual practices. Second, Solomon's story shows the dangers of allowing power, wealth, and worldly pleasures to become idols in our lives. Solomon began his reign with a deep sense of dependence on God, but as his wealth and power grew, so did his sense of self-sufficiency. He began to trust in his abilities and resources rather than in God, leading him down a path of spiritual and moral compromise. Finally, Solomon's life is a testament to the importance of finishing well. He started his reign with great promise and divine favor, but he did not finish strong. His story is a sobering reminder that how we end our journey is more important as how we begin it. Solomon's wisdom and achievements in his early years were overshadowed by the spiritual and moral failures of his later years, leaving a legacy that is both celebrated and lamented. The end of Solomon was not just a personal tragedy. It had far-reaching consequences for the entire nation of Israel. His failure to remain faithful to God set in motion a series of events that would lead to the eventual decline of the United Kingdom of Israel. The seeds of idolatry that Solomon planted by allowing the worship of other gods within Israel would later grow into a full-blown spiritual crisis for the nation. As his reign progressed, the once glorious king who had been so devoted to God began to lose the spiritual fervor that had marked his early years. Solomon's wealth and power had initially been seen as blessings from God, but they eventually became the very things that led him away from the path of righteousness. His insatiable desire for more wives, more wealth, more alliances, blinded him to the dangers of compromising his faith. One of the tragic ironies of Solomon's story is that the man who wrote so eloquently about the dangers of folly in the book of Proverbs became ensnared by it himself. He had warned others about the dangers of following the wrong path, yet he failed to heed his advice. His wisdom, though immense, could not protect him from the subtle and pervasive influence of sin. This is the dark tale of King Solomon that has been hidden in history. If you enjoyed this interestingly dark tale of the wisest king recorded in history, please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. God bless you.